Hello everyone, welcome to Steven Inks. My name is Steven and I'm a pen and ink artist. I really enjoy particularly working with fountain pens and creating things. So today I'm actually going to be talking a little bit about a line of inks that I've been waiting to test out for quite some time. The last video that I published on this channel, I received this set of ink samples from the Goulet Pen Company. The company that creates this ink is Atramentis. I think I'm pronouncing that correct. And they created this line of inks called the Document ink set. So I have this whole set here. We are going to swatch out and test all of these different inks. We are going to see how they react to water. And then I am going to put my favorite ink, the one that I choose, to a torture test of watercolor, doing a watercolor piece along with the inks. I'm going to be recreating an old drawing of mine. This drawing has a special significance to me, and it turns out a significance to a friend of mine. So I'm going to be redrawing this art as a gift to my friend. In the drawing section of this video, I want to say up front that the subject matter is going to be quite serious, as I'm going to be discussing some potentially sensitive mental health issues such as self-harm and suicide. I've tried to do this in a way that is sensitive and uplifting and encourages people to choose life and positive direction for their lives. And this is my personal experience, but I understand that this may not be the subject matter that everyone is interested in engaging with today. So during the drawing section of the video, if you would prefer not to hear that story, I invite you to turn the volume down or off and enjoy the art, and I hope you enjoy the video today. In my last video where I talked about my Lamy 2000 that I bought from the Goulet Pen Company, you might have noticed in the unboxing that I pulled out a bag of samples which I purchased separately. One of the exciting things that the Goulet Pen Company does is that they offer these little sample vials filled with different inks, so you can try something out if you get it for a cheaper price than buying a whole bottle of something. Find the thing that you like. So I'm hopefully going to use these samples to find something that I'd really like to add to my collection without having to purchase a bunch of bottles and not see what I'm looking for. So let's go over this. This is the, and I'm going to pronounce it wrong probably, this is the Atramentis, I believe, Document ink series. And these are supposed to be waterproof, and I got the entire line here. So even though these cost about $2 a sample, it ended up costing me about 20 bucks. So I'm going to run through the entire thing that I got here. This is Document Cyan. As a color on its own is not that exciting, but it is part of one of the three colors that makes up the CMYK color profile, which most printers are based off of, and a lot of print services require that even digital documents be in this kind of setting, because you can mix every single color in the visible spectrum, I'm pretty sure, with these three colors. So there's this one, and there's a Document Fuchsia, which is similar to magenta, which is the M in CMYK, and there's also a Document Yellow. So I don't think I would use these colors here on their own for anything. They're kind of overly saturated for my taste, but I could also combine them to create my own color in theory, and I may do that just to see if the qualities of the ink as being waterproof will hold up. So that's interesting, and let's look at what other colors we have here. This is a Document Dark Green, hoping for something of sort of a forest green color, something that I can use. I might use this for something. I'm not as interested in the reds, but let's just see what we've got here. There's a Document Red, and a Document Dark Red. Very creative names here, huh? Document Dark Blue. All right. And sure enough, Document Blue. So they have dark versions of the original. There's a dark Document Violet. That might be interesting to use as part of a piece in conjunction with watercolor. But mostly what I'm interested in is these blacks and grays, which I'm going to get to in a second. There is a Document White. And that sounds fun and interesting. I have heard that this one has a lot of kind of viscous sediment in it and that it clogs pens. So I have not experienced that yet, but we may have to do a test run with that on its own. It's probably not something that I would consider purchasing, but the ones that I am really interested in are these ones right here. There's Document Urban Gray. Okay, so this one I'm very interested in, something that's a little more desaturated than a black. There's also a Document Fog Gray. I'm very interested in that as well to see how that is. There's the traditional Document Black, and I do tend to go towards black colors when I'm trying to do some nice line art, especially if it's going to be with watercolor. I do feel that Platinum Carbon Black has kind of met that need for me, so I'm more interested in these gray colors. And there's Document Brown. So this is kind of like, it could be close to a sepia color, which looks really nice with watercolors from some things I've seen online, and some people that use like Pigma Micron pens that are like a sepia ink. The effect is, I think, really cool, especially when drawing the human figure. So these are the four that I'm really interested in, but I am going to swatch all of these inks and test them with watercolor. That's coming up. Let me show you some of the tools that I'm going to be using to do these swatches. Another day, another sketchbook. This is another one of my half-finished sketchbooks that I really like. For watercolor, it is cotton paper, and it's one of the more affordable kinds. This is the Be Creative by the Twsbi Paper Company sketchbook. One thing I like about this is it's the pages are 8.5 by 11, so you can actually tear them off. And if you have a printer that you trust to do like thicker paper, you can actually print things off of that printer and paint over the top of them. I've done it before with this particular pad, and so it's pretty cool. Yeah, like I said, it's cotton paper. It's got a nice somewhat smooth texture, a little bit of texture to it, but mostly it's just kind of smooth. And so I'm going to be putting the ink down on this because we'll be putting watercolor over the top of it to test to see if it feathers and bleeds, if it's truly waterproof, like my experience has been with the Platinum Carbon Black. And due to the size of these vials and the fact that I don't want to fill every single fountain pen I own up with these inks in order to just test it, we're going to be using a dip pen today. This is the, I'm going to mispronounce again. This is not a YouTube channel for pronunciation tips, but the Tachikawa, I think that's close enough, holder, which came recommended by people who do this kind of art a lot. I would say I don't use it as much as my fountain pens, but I do have it. And this holder I bought at an art shop in Paris when my wife and I were there. I don't think this is Parisian in origin. What does it say right here? It's all rusted. I can't really read it, but anyway, the reason I like this holder is because, besides being super rusty, it doesn't really flex, so we're not getting a line variation, which is what I expect from most of the fountain pens that I like and use all the time. So this is gonna, I hope, sort of imitate that extra fine line that I tend to use and give it as close to the fountain pen feel as I can. It should be noted that these dip pens do kind of put down a wetter line than most fountain pens that I have seen. So I'm not going to show you this in full time, but I'm going to write the name of the ink, and then I'm going to swatch with a little bit of hatching, and I'm going to put all of the inks down here, and then after I'm done with that, I'm going to run a wash of watercolor, a light wash over the top of it, and see if we get feathering, bleeding. How does the ink hold up? Is it consistent across all the different ones? So let's get to it. Right, we're gonna see what we've got here. What I did was I took this water brush. This is a Pentel water brush. Not a very expensive brush, but it does. I do really like these synthetic bristles. I think they're some of the best that you can get in the price range. I use this sometimes when I don't want to be inconvenienced too much by having a brush and bucket of water and all that other stuff. And these are, I use mostly Daniel Smith lemon yellow for all of these darker colors, and for the lighter document yellow and document white, I used shadow violet. And let's just see what the results are. There's a little bit of a mix, and you can see there is a slight lift up that I can see here that kind of pollutes the yellow. The document black, the lines held up really nice, really sharp. The green, the fog gray has a kind of a bit of a wobble there. The urban gray looks all right. It does dilute a little bit. The dark blue, strong lines, document blue, strong lines. A little bit of feathering with the document cyan. It's interesting, these colors do kind of look kind of green against the yellow, which is a surprising side effect. The document violet looks really nice. Document dark red, document fuchsia has some kind of bleeding here. It could be the paper, it could be the dip pen, but it's slightly there. It doesn't bother me though. And the document brown held up strong. Document dark green, great as well. The document yellow didn't appear to feather or bleed. I should note that the document yellow and the document dark green mixed a slightly bit on the top here. So this D right here looks kind of like what the yellow looked like to me. And then these other ones are kind of greenish. The document white doesn't really show up here. And I'm kind of curious, I'm just going to do this right now, if that will show up over something darker that's already been painted down. I'm not sure what I'm getting out of this ink. It feels as thick as like correction fluid. So, okay. Yeah, and this paint hasn't completely dried yet, but I do see some line right there. It's not very potent. I'm not very impressed with the document white. I can get the lines to show up there. Could be useful for highlights in a drawing, but then from what I've heard about it being too thick and clogging fountain pens, it does feel more viscous than some of the other ones, and I'm just not sure. I wouldn't trust it in my favorite pen, let me tell you that. So, standout inks for me, the ones that I was really impressed with. Well, first of all, the document black is good. I would say it's right on par with platinum carbon black, since I already have a bottle of that I use all the time. That wouldn't be my purchase if I was going to purchase one of these inks. The document fog gray looks a little blue. I was impressed by the document urban gray. I think that might be just the gray that I'm looking for. The document violet is kind of cool. I could see myself using that in something. And the Document Dark Red was one that surprised me. I wasn't sure if I would like that, but it turns out that I do. And and the Document Brown, I thought I would like that, and I do. But I am going to prepare a drawing sample that is watercolor plus ink. And my choice for the fountain pen that I am going to fill with the ink from these samples here is going to be the Document Urban Gray. I think this would be my choice if I were to purchase a bottle of Document ink, either the Document Urban Gray or the Document Brown, maybe both. For now, I'm not looking to expand my ink collection too much. I have a very understanding wife who doesn't like to see the house get too cluttered with a bunch of stuff. So I'm just gonna hold off on that. But these two were the ones that really stood out to me. Let's make some drawings. So the ink that was chosen, my favorite of the colors I've seen so far, is this Urban Gray, close second to the brown, which seemed really cool. There are a lot of other colors that I like though. I've decided I'm gonna fill up my Twsbi Eco. And in order to do that without causing too much of an issue, I'm gonna use this blunt needle syringe. I'm sure there's other ways to do this, but this is the one that made the most sense to me because I'm gonna try not to waste any of this ink. So I've found out that the needle doesn't go completely down to the bottom, so I'm gonna have to tilt it slightly while pouring it out. There probably is a much easier way to do this, but I don't know what it is, so we're doing this. I'm gonna try and get all of it in there because I really don't think there's any other situation where I'd be able to get any more out of this sample. All right, that's pretty dry. And now I'm just going to remove the feed and pump the ink directly in to the pen. See how close is this to a full fill of, wow, okay. Okay, that actually, I think it might have overfilled a little bit, but there's a lot of air bubbles in there, so we'll let the air bubbles settle out and I'll recap the pen and we are going to draw with this Urban Gray Atramentis Document ink. Excited. Okay, so I wasn't even gonna do this with this pen, considering that I already swatched out all the different inks, but I just need to take a moment to recognize and appreciate the way that this Twsbi Eco, the fountain pen, lays out this ink. You can definitely see the color and the kind of qualities of it a little bit better. This paper is pretty absorbent. It's not the best for showing qualities of inks in fountain pens, but looking at this compared to, if you can get it to focus, compared to what that dip pen looked like, man, I really prefer the way this fountain pen puts down the ink. I was going to do a video about dip pens, seeing as how I have quite a few, but I realized after spending some time with them, I don't like dip pens. I love how smooth the fountain pens go on. I love the way that the ink just kind of glides and that the nib of a fountain pen shows off the color. You get that sheening and shading with the right inks, and I just don't want to do any more dip pens. Anybody want a free dip pen holder? I'll give it to you if you're willing to stand directly in front of my garbage. Yeah, so friends don't let friends use dip pens. I am 100% there for this urban gray right here in this Twsbi Eco. I'm super excited to share some drawing with you guys. So I thought you guys might be interested in seeing the pencil version of my art, how I go about scratching out shapes and meaning and volumes before putting down the ink. So if you're interested in that, please drop me a comment and let me know. Otherwise, I may not record it in the future. I wanted to give myself lots of space to talk about this particular drawing and the meaning that I found in it, and why I created it, and the meaning that actually it had for a friend of mine. So I'm actually creating this piece for this friend, and I'm going to talk a little bit about her and what her life experience has led her to create, and then why did I create this in the first place. So I've talked a lot on this channel about my own struggles with depression, with my mental health, and having a circle of people that I can trust, that I can confide in and help me along my way. That's been a very positive thing for me, but this particular piece was inspired by a tragedy in my life. This is the second time I'm drawing it. The first one was posted up on my Instagram about 2017. The event itself happened back around, I want to say 2014 or 15, when a friend of mine passed away due to self-inflicted wounds. Now I'm saying it that way because it's important to note that sometimes self-harm, the intent is not always to end life, and it's often not completely clear if that's what the case was. And so I want to leave that with what I know and not what I assume. But to understand that my friend was going through that same depression that I was going through made it very hard to think about, like, how could I have helped him? You know, how could what I'm dealing with have been some way a help to him? And what is the difference between how he was dealing with what he was going through and how I was dealing with what I was going through? And so I have this story of an earthworm that wants to be a butterfly, and it seems almost silly. I'm sure this story could be a children's book if it wasn't for such the dramatically kind of dark overtone that brought about the inspiration of this story. Yeah, I think if from a metaphorical sense, if you're an earthworm and you're comparing yourself to a butterfly, you're going to come up short. But you have to understand what an earthworm is. I teach this to my students, actually, because I'm a science teacher in my day job. And earthworms have such an incredibly important role in the ecosystem. They're decomposers. Their job is to break down dead and decaying matter and down into nutrients, and those nutrients feed the soil, which feeds plants and allows the ecosystem to continue. It's important, it's foundational, but sometimes we feel like our roles don't fit us. And so that was kind of the inspiration behind this story. It was a hard thing for me to think about. And I want to encourage anyone out there who's dealing with some of those things to please reach out to someone and see the value of who you are and what your role is, even if sometimes it feels like it doesn't fit. So that's the basic version of that story. And the inspiration for redrawing, it actually came from conversations recently with my friend Aimee, who I used to actually paint with her in college. She was my painting buddy. We would go and hang out and paint together. You know, some people drink when they get stressed out. Some people eat high carb food. I liked to paint, and so did Aimee. She's recently started a blog. Not a blog, excuse me. She recently started a podcast to explain through and maybe even create resources to help people dealing with similar situations, where she talks a lot about her late husband's struggle with cancer and all of the things that go into the aftermath of having to live on after he passed away. And her husband Ben was also a really good friend of mine, so this is someone that I really care about, and I'm really happy to be able to create this for her as a support for her, because we had a conversation about it a couple weeks ago, and she really connected with the idea of just feeling like you're missing out, feeling like there's something that you can't be when you have to be fulfilling the role that you have, which was amazingly exactly what I intended this piece to be. So I'm going to be sending that off to her. If you're interested in her podcast, it's called A Grief Redeemed. She talks about the loss of her husband, and how she's dealt with that through the perspective of faith. I know that may not be everybody's cup of tea, but if you're interested in it, I encourage you to check it out. I'm going through those episodes slowly to give myself time to process it, because of course, you know, she's my friend and her husband was my friend as well. But yeah, I'll put a link to that in the description of the video if you're interested in checking it out. And we may have her on as a guest, on the first guest I've ever had on this channel, if our time permits and schedules permit. We've been talking about that because she was my art buddy. So yeah, for my friend, I'm creating this piece, and I hope you guys enjoyed watching me create it. And I really hope that if you're struggling out there in the world, you find the place you can reach out to, someone to talk to. Even calling a hotline, you know, is better than dealing with it alone. If you don't quite have the social structure that you feel like you need. Anyway, I say this from a place of care. I care about you guys, and I'm glad for all the comments and encouragement on this channel. It's been a wonderful help to me to have you guys here, and I really hope that you're all doing well. Final thoughts. I am still absolutely in love with this urban gray. I still have quite a bit of it left, as you can see in my pen. And yeah, it's actually seems like it turns out that the urban gray, above all the other colors that I tested today, was one of the hardest ones to find. I did finally find an Amazon listing, but the Goulet Pen Company also sells that color ink, and I will invite you to invest in either a bottle of the ink, or you can also buy the exact same sample set that I bought from them. So I'll include links to both of those in the description to this video. I really do appreciate all of the qualities of this ink. I think it's a great ink for artists and art. I was particularly surprised by the dark red and the dark green, how much I liked those colors. And of course, Urban Gray is my winner. The brown was also quite nice. And I imagine that the black I would enjoy just as much as my Platinum Carbon Black, which I do have a full bottle of in my selection of inks back there. So if I were to purchase any of these inks in a full bottle form, I would definitely want the Urban Gray. And the brown is quite nice, and maybe that dark red or that dark green. I had a lot of fun sharing this with you guys today, and I want you all to take care of yourselves and be well, and I'll see you in the next video.